This episode is about minutes 101 through 105 of Solo: A Star Wars Story, featuring returning guest Alex Cunningham. Hello there, and welcome to Star Wars Music Minute, where we celebrate the music and sound of Star Wars 5 cinematic minutes at a time. I'm Xanthe Tan, you can call me Xanthe, and today is all about minutes 101 through 105 of Solo: A Star Wars Story, which begins with Enfys Nest revealing herself by taking off her helmet, and ends with Beckett telling Han about a gangster putting a crew together on Tatooine. Welcome back to the show, Alex.
Thank you for having me, Xanthe. I'm very excited to be here.
You are the first guest to, by total coincidence, be the first person to be the same episode number for 2 seasons. So you were a New Hope episode. You had the same minutes, 101 through 105 for A New Hope, and now you have 101 through 105 of Solo.
There's a certain time in your recording when you've run out of all the excellent guests. And, it's time to start getting humble and give yourself a worthy challenge. So here I come to provide that. I'm excited to talk about these minutes very much. They're fascinating in ways that I wasn't expecting until we did a deep dive preparing for today.
I really, really love these. I really love these minutes. And I am a little bit fascinated because prior to us recording, you sent me a bunch of cryptic deposits in links with no context, just hey, thinking about these for the episode, and it's like 5 different links to different things that I'm not exactly sure how they're all related to the minutes. So I'm excited to find out.
We will see. Chalk that up to years of being a professional teacher in one form or another, where I know I need to have stuff to fill time just in case. So I'm super excited for perspective. Mostly what I've actually brought is questions. So
awesome. What's your favorite thing about these minutes?
Musically, I would say my favorite thing is the way that this plays in a way that makes me want more from Star Wars, with just sound, no dialogue, no music. It happens in Star Wars. It's a thing that happens in lots of interesting filmmaking, but Star Wars being I think the episode of this podcast I was most recently listening to, that guest had at one point called it visual opera, or it was something opera, but the idea of Star Wars as opera means you never really get that break of either the music or the dialogue telling you what's going on and how you should feel about it. And when you get that break, it's often handled with a lot of technical proficiency, a lot of artistic creativity. I'm really interested in how this scene or these minutes do that.
Speaking of visuals, here's a little a preview of what happens in these minutes from start to finish. I'm putting up a little imagery on YouTube. We see Enfys Nest on the left with her helmet off, her mask off, her helmet off. We see the Crimson Dawn symbol being drawn in the dust in the middle, and then we see Beckett on his lonesome talking to Han on the right.
The color palette's so consistent in that. I don't know if you color corrected there, or that's just
I'm not color correcting.
Good, consistent cinematography. Another thing that jumps out to me about these minutes.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I think there's a lot of color. The colors in this film are not controversial, but they leave much to be desired for some people, and in some parts, it certainly is it takes a stance. Like I am one of those people that thinks some of it is a little bit dark, but then the light parts are very, I don't know. I think I think this color palette is very pleasing.
The most generous way to put that is probably like to say it's got like a high dynamic range, like in music, right? Where like a really excellent recording specifically just for audio, maybe not for pop, but maybe more classical or something like that. the pianos are going to be pianissimo, and the fortes are going to be extremely loud. And maybe that's the most generous way to read that. I found it very difficult to watch this movie, but maybe it's just that it has this really, the brights are super bright in this movie, and the darks are super dark, and that's meant to evoke something about the range of characters. I don't know.
I don't think the brights are actually super bright in this movie. I think they're light, but I don't think they're bright. Like, I don't think there's not much saturation. It's not vibrant. It's pale. It's washed out. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's a choice. You know what I mean? Am I seeing that?
No,
right?
I think that's very fair.
Yeah. But then to contrast that to, I think, Dryden Voss's ship, which is so gold. So it really sets up a contrast there with the golds there, and I don't know, I think of the reds associated with some of Qi'ra and the cape and stuff. Yeah. So we have this set of minutes, which has maybe one of my favorite, if not my favorite, musical buildup. Musical lead up in the film. And
what's that?
Well, it's when we're leading into it's when they're mentioning Crimson Dawn. So, you have a look on your face that says maybe we gravitated toward different things. Which is great.
But do go on.
So let's take a little bit of a listen, just a little listen while talking over it, because I don't want to have any problems with this YouTube video.
About 30 hired guns. All I gotta do is give them the signal, you're surrounded.
Okay, so this is obvious underscore. Yep, that's the Millennium Falcon, which I know why you sent that clip. So here we have this cello line start to come in. It's very it keeps repeating itself. It's ominous sounding. It switches off between two different cells. Oops, sorry, hit my microphone. Two different patterns. So it goes like. Over and over again. Except an octave lower, of course. And it sets up for me this ominous sort of, waiting for something to happen ness. Mm-hmm. We're also hearing the end of what came before it, which was the creaking, the squeaking of the metallic, objects that the wind is moving do you know what I'm talking about? Sort of the squeaking at the beginning.
Yeah, it's not Jaws theme.
Right.
It's
good way to put it.
It's obviously a little different, and that's Williams as well. That lead in right at the beginning there, where I think it's just a violent tone is sort of seems sort of nothing, but that slow build that follows on the a string instrument just a little bit deeper is really nice. I always think when I hear a nice moody cello line like that, why not go bowed stand up bass? Why not really go for it? Hit that real low end. But I think people have to be able. It has to be at a high enough register for human beings to hear it and not just feel the chair shaking. So I get it.
Well, we do have there is low bass action in this set of minutes, actually. So
one of my favorite kinds of action.
Yes. So a composer need not play all of their cards at once. At least save something. Right. If they have the full color palette to work with. And one color will do just great. It's just, I agree. Is there bass in there? There could be. Bass might be actually doubled there, but not in a lower octave though. It might be in the same. Wait. Actually, I don't think bass is there. I think it's just cello. No,
Okay.
I hear bass below it. I hear bass and cello doubled. Yeah, which often happens in an orchestra. It's an orchestrational. It's a common orchestrational choice to have the bass and cello double. In fact, in sometimes when like if a piece of music is written for a string quartet to be adapted for a string orchestra, a string quartet normally has two violins, a viola, and a cello. And then often if there is no bass part, the bass just kind of doubles the cello.
Why?
Why? Because they can. They're in the same clef, and because it's sort of like the most logical place for them to go.
Okay.
Not always, but like in some contexts, it is. Why not?
Well, I'm wondering, like, is there a musical, specific benefit to that other than, I guess, other than reinforcement, but like reinforcement on an instrument that's bigger? Is it a volume thing? Like you can, because it's physically bigger, you can add like a dimension that just adding a second cello performing the same part wouldn't.
Oh. Yeah, it wouldn't be like, it wouldn't necessarily be in the context of adding a bass on purpose. It would more so be if a bass is already there and they don't have a part to play, you give them the cello part.
Got it.
Again, this is a very big generalization because it depends on the type of music. But if it works, if the cello part is there to provide some sort of an anchor, then a bass can make it even more anchored.
So what makes this a really like interesting build-up for you as someone who's been diving deep into so many of these films for so long?
Well, it's the way that it continues to unfold. So we haven't really quite gotten there. The build-up, the build-up has to have a payoff. Though the fact that this is so, I think the fact that this cello line is like, this cello bass line is isolated, immediately makes me pay attention to it. So it's not just in the midst, it's not just behind like other types of like other music. It's really just the dialogue and that, Oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. I keep hitting the mic. Sorry, listeners. Okay. So it lets you see the buildup like sequentially, progressively, because it gives you that one piece at a time. So first it's just a few times, and then we're gonna get violins add to it. They just sustain a note. They're gonna go, so it's gonna go. Let's see if I can play this at the same time. No, I can't do it at the same time, but let's hear it. Okay, you see?
Sorry, do your thing.
By the time that coaxium gets refined, Crimson Dawn will be here. So you go ahead and kill us.
Continues.
They're gonna kill you.
So it's very soft, but the violins have already entered.
So much killing.
They're marauders.
Oh, so they have.
They don't care about anybody. All they know how to do is kill.
But really softly. Like you can barely hear it at first, but then could you hear it toward the end? They're kind of just...
Yeah, it was a real, like, once you pointed out, I couldn't notice, or I could suddenly notice.
Yeah. So they enter really softly, and so they build up, and suddenly you notice it. Like there is the notes that the cello is, the notes that the cello and bass are playing are like D. They're in the pitch family of D, E flat, F, G flat, A flat. And the note that the violin is playing is a C. So already that is like, if your ear has adjusted to D as its tonal center, just because that's D, 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 that's what the cello are playing, then already the C is kind of a dissonant, it's already kind of beating against it. So... We even have some tritone in there. Just the C kind of is not, it's not the same thing as like I don't know. There could be many more consonant types of notes to be hitting against that, but it's a purposely semi-dissonant one. Also, I have to note that the pitch collection of these notes, if you were to rearrange them, you'd get the Enfys Nest theme. So. So it's all connected.
That was a note that I took, was how many ways it feels like the Enfys Nest theme is being played off in the first, I think, 2 minutes of these 5, in ways that are not, obviously we don't get the big full Bulgarian choir moment to really like hit us in the face with it, but it feels like that the notes are so. I obviously didn't quite get the level of technical understanding that you had there, but I heard the borrowed notes, and then I think, are we hearing in a moment or in a moment or two, are we hearing a bamboo flute or wooden flute version of the Enfys Nest theme?
Right. It sounds like the Mando recorder.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very so the lead up is still happening, and it's going to continue to unfold. The violins are going to take over from this ominous low thing. The violins are slowly taking over, and then they're going to soar into this very high register. And the way that it builds goes like. And then you might recognize. Like it kind of ends sweetly when you get the reveal. And it just, the buildup is the notes ascending, it's a crescendo. And then when it is revealed, when Enfys Nest is revealed, it's like this sweet resolution where it just kind of dissipates, but in a, not dissipates. That's not the word I'm thinking of, but I don't know. Maybe you can help me out, but it becomes tender. It becomes suddenly sweet. Shall we listen to the? Oh,
yeah, we can listen, but I definitely have a question about the handoff.
Oh yeah, what's your question?
Is it reading too much into this to assume that the instrumentation is in some way gendered? That like. I'm thinking of my limited touch point being Handel and the way that in the Messiah he uses low instruments like a cello or bass to play some of the same melodies that the male voices are singing in the choral parts, and then uses higher tone instruments like violins, or even I think he even uses some of the brass to mirror the exact melodies of the quote unquote, female or feminine vocal parts. And as this goes from, boys talking tough to reveal of, someone's presenting as a very young woman, is that the like low cello to high violin handoff? Is it the same thing?
So here would be a situation where I think it's more, that could be part of it, and it could certainly be a way to read it, but I would not think that it's the main reason. I think the main thing would just be that, like in the example of Handel, like George Frederick Handel, Messiah, it's higher instruments can mimic higher voices more easily, and it's more of it. There's a bit of a matching involved in terms of register, and also the violin and cello. So it's not just like the instruments and ranges are associated loosely, and I don't mean associated on purpose, just like historically. Like contrabassoon and like bass clarinet and stuff in opera are often associated with villains, not because they have to be, just because a lot of composers use them that way. And it just just how a lot of composers feel that it vibes. And violins for this will often be like for love things or for like hopeful things in the higher registers, and cello like Jaws, and I don't know, maybe the Jaws shark is a boy. I don't remember. It would be lower, but it's that in that case, I would say it's probably to me less like boy girl, less gendered, and more about the fear and the hope, or like the something scary to something not scary. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So let's listen to this build up. There we go. And
I need a drink. Bring them
I think
inside.
this note really emphasizes it too. One more thing I want to say is it's not just about the instruments. It's like the harmony changes there too, and it gets softer. So it's not just that it goes from cello to violin. It's because violins in a very high register can also evoke terror. Like that often does evoke terror. Like high pitched violins is often what people think of it in horror. And so there are lots of elements working together, like the consonance of the chords there, and just the notes and everything, all kind of support that sweet reveal.
Almost reminds me of the like admission by Luke to Leia in Return of the Jedi that she's his sister, when we suddenly get a more gentle musical cue just at that moment, that they realize a sweet, loving connection that complicates, but also kind of is more gentle than what they had before.
Yeah, that's a good point. So the harmony there, it goes from like, what I was saying earlier, where like all those notes are kind of beating up against each other, and we have like tritones, we have like, let's see, we have like, and then we have, and then it resolves down to, which is like it's a seventh chord. It's I feel like this is like the sweetest note of all in that. That's just me, because it feels like it should go down here. I don't know, but I love seventh. I love major seventh action. So yeah, it's just a very obviously sweet reveal. Not obviously,
how do you
but
feel
like,
about the reveal of the character in that moment?
How do I feel about it?
Maybe that's changed over time. I know that the fandom has had a lot of different feelings or takes on, especially on whether that moment is a moment that changed in original script versus original shooting versus reshoots.
Oh, but, okay. I don't actually know.
I'm curious, how it struck you, if at all.
I remember being, I in the theater, I don't think I cared that much. Like, the thing is, like, I didn't feel too strongly about the things in this movie because I wasn't super invested in it while watching it. So everything was like, okay, cool. The music though was telling me that part was important, and I remember that, like, because I didn't think it was that big of a reveal or big of a deal that like this person took off their helmet and it was like a girl. Like, I didn't really think that was a big deal, but the music was telling me that it was something that was like a moment of awe, and so I went along with it because of the music, and it helped me also understand that if it weren't for the music, I probably would have thought like, oh, did I miss this? Oh, I guess I missed it. But the music told me that, like, no, this is a quote unquote reveal. This is a reveal. And so, what about you?
Not to mention the little take that Bobias Beckett and young Han Solo have, where they kind of look at each other like, wow, oh my goodness. Yeah, I appreciate hearing that from another human being. I similarly thought, like, I mean, she has a different voice from her voice modulator, I guess, that was on her helmet. So that's an interesting reveal, because she doesn't seem like the kind of face I would have imagined. But I don't know if this is worth a full second of screen time for everyone to pause and go, the doctor was a woman. Oh,
like, I think it's more surprising, or I think it's more of a reveal that she's starting the rebellion, which we do get into, or involved in the starts of that. So, I don't know. But
I'm wondering how far off base I am in hearing the Enfys Nest theme in there, besides the sort of reordering of notes that you pointed out earlier.
Oh, interesting. Can you say more?
I was trying to give it several listens prior to recording, and I was just trying to puzzle out, are we trying to, is Powell trying to set up that we're going to hear the Enfys Nest theme on Mando recorder soon?
Okay, well, let's hear this without the dialogue. Oh, go a little bit later. Okay, here we go. Okay. Oh, this little rebel fanfare. That's when the Millennium Falcon is taking off. Yes. And so now we're going to get that Jaws thing. I'm obnoxiously doubling it on the piano. You hear the violins. Yep.
Starting to come in.
Now the violin's going to take over.
There they are.
Louder. And then it's just pause. The keys goes even higher. And it goes down to this major chord, just very plain major chord. And that's what I think is the sweetest chord. And here's where we get to the. And you're saying you hear the hints of it before that.
It may just be that interesting, like, dropping of similar notes, and then I love that transition via percussion.
It's, yeah, like, you mean the very low pitched, like, it sort of underneath, like, it kind of leads it in. You almost feel it more than you hear it. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know exactly what you're hearing there, but I'll probably realize something later. I feel like you picked up on something that I didn't.
Let's not give me too much credit. What's the next exciting thing for you in this scene?
Well, I like the I actually think it's probably bass flute here. I think it's bass flute, which is very cool, with very bass singing. There's your bass.
Much respect.
It's you,
much
Alex.
Respect.
Is it you?
I can now reveal at last. This whole time.
Wow, what a coincidence that I picked you for the minutes where you are.
It's so amazing. It's definitely not something I set up with master plans with last season at all. No, I should be so lucky. There's a couple of great bass singing parts in all 11 Star Warses, but it's just a couple. I will admit, if we're talking about this movie, it's hard to top the incredible Bulgarian choir earlier in the film. I can certainly defer to that. It's super cool to hear this changed up on new instruments.
The Bulgarian choir was also in the last 5 minutes.
Right,
FYI.
of course.
And there's 2 Bulgarian choirs. There's the men and the women. You know.
Oh, a subtlety that was completely passed me by. I will absolutely have to give that another listen. Something
that I think I really love how the bass singers and the bass flute here. I like how their timbres interact. The bass flute, compared to a normal flute, is obviously lower, but in comparison to the bass singers, it sounds noticeably higher, so it stands out in the same way that like a flute might stand out over more of a typical range. But everything is kind of shifted lower, but the contrast kind of remains the same. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah.
And the smooth, like the singing is so low that it feels like rumbly. It feels more textured. And the flute sounds so smooth on top of it, but still with a lot of character, as I find bass flute can have so much character in it, like in how slow the vibrato is sometimes, and here the vibrato is pretty slow. I don't know if you picked up on that as well, but yeah, it's nice to hear a bass flute solo. If in fact this is a bass flute, which it sounds like to me, but you know, whatever this low-pitched wind instrument is, lower-pitched wind instrument. And it works well under the dialogue. So before we move on, is there anything else that you...
Well, that section did raise more questions for me.
Okay, yeah.
Admittedly, I'm bringing more questions and answers to this recording, but it feels like there must be good examples of this, and I couldn't think of what they were. But other times in the various Wars in the Stars, where a theme shows up with different instrumentation. And I know Augie's Great Municipal Band is sort of an example of that, but it's also so transformed it almost feels like more of an Easter egg when you notice its connection.
Can you make that more clear what you're talking about with Augie's?
Sure. Augie's Great Municipal Band, the number at the end of episode 1, the big celebration, as we're all getting ready to hold glowing orbs up in the air to signal the end of a film, as is tradition. And that famously has musical elements, or famously, if you're a big fat Dorcas like myself, has musical elements that are similar to the Emperor's theme from, I believe, Empire is where we first hear the Emperor's theme. But it's Augie's Great Municipal Band. It's of course a giant celebration with a whole bunch of instruments all tied in, and it's very upbeat and positive and cheerful. And the Emperor's theme is ominous and dreadful, and has a smaller number of instruments, usually low vocals. That's my summary, trying to do the thing where you explain to someone who actually knows a lot more than you the thing that they know more about.
No, it's okay. This is interesting because now I think that's a different thing, for one. I think that's definitely a different, and it's different too. So in that case, it's not obvious that it's the same theme. It's not.
Right.
It's not meant to be the same theme. And for those who don't know, the Emperor's theme is... So it's these notes. And then I'm going to keep it in the same register, but Augie's is much higher. Augie's is... So it's not even the same notes. It's just that vaguely it goes in the same. Like the end of it is kind of the same, but it's sped up. But it's like, it might be, it's Easter egg at best, right?
Right.
And here is like, obviously this is the same theme. It's obviously the same. The flute is obviously Enfys Nest theme. It's not. It's the same exact notes. This type of passing melody from one instrument to another and putting it in a different context is very. It's common. It's the norm. It's the norm in the scores. It's less normal to just keep it the exact same. And now I'm remembering why I was like, you should come back on the show, because you were asking Alex. Thank you so much for asking always like really good questions on Discord. Like I feel like I'm bringing up your questions like every other episode, or I'm like, and Alex on Discord had a couple questions.
It's incessant, and
no, it's great.
You mute whenever you need to, but
no, that's why.
And of course, my only example that I could think of is connected to a goofy sitcom. But I'm looking forward to you giving me some insight here. It feels like a thing that I should understand better, because it must happen all the time, and I'm just not catching it.
So okay, you asked on Discord. And
Sure.
if anyone listening wants to join the Discord,
absolutely should.
There's a link to the
Right.
my Patreon in the show notes, and that's how you join the Discord.
It's a very fine community.
Quality
and
control.
Everyone should do it.
What was that?
It's a very fine community, and everyone should be there. It was cool.
Well, you make it fun, Alex. And right after we record this, we're doing our RPG day. So
Yes, we are.
we're seeing each other a lot today. Okay, so you asked, I would love to know if Frank Lehman has a list of how many variants of a theme are present in each movie. That is this week's episode, and you were talking about Lacey Gilleran's episode 17, highlighted a number of nice alternate takes on themes we already know well, and I would be interested to hear how often they are generated. And you said this feels like a thing I see in sitcoms a ton, where there's a main theme and they'll play a slow lamenting version of the theme and a sad or bright punchy version and a jokey scene. And yeah, that is that would be like an extreme example of different versions of the theme. And so now I think is where we have to get into the reason it was not just an easy answer was because there are many ways to shake up a theme. There are many variants on a theme, and it would all go back to what do you consider the main, what do you consider the prime, if that, you know what I mean? What do you consider what do you consider the first theme? And this could mean, because it's so hard to talk about themes sometimes, because each unit of measuring, each unit of defining, or each definition of musical things kind of captures a different part of its essence. And so there's like the piece, there's the score, there's a track, there's a phrase, there's a motif, there's a theme, there's a gesture there. And those things, there's a recording, and those things could all be slightly separate. So a theme to me is something that's like something that doesn't exist in one form. It's a theme that is, a theme. Like think of a literary theme. It could be played out in many different ways. So maybe if you can define more what you mean. Do you mean like it just different from the first time it appears? Maybe?
I'm typically thinking of like there's a melody or a melodic grouping of notes that's repeated, typically maybe in different instruments, or which might change the tempo, but there's one that comes up early in a thing, whatever work of art that is, that gets repeated in that same tempo, volume, or dynamics, instrumentation, etc. And then when you hear like a slightly different version, or you hear someone play it on a different instrument, the main theme is whatever the one that comes up early and repeated the most often, and then the variants, the ones that are not prime, are maybe the ones that you hear less often or only in specific cases. But again, it seems so difficult to give that a proper definition.
Okay, question. earlier in these minutes, when we hear the falcon fly off and we hear the little bit of the rebel fanfare, do you consider that it's obviously sounds different than do you consider that a variant?
I would consider that a variant. But
okay.
This is part of my question is like where do we draw that line between like this is a new variant on a thing versus it just sounds similar.
Or like a new I don't know if variant would even just a new interpret a new way of expressing it. See, I think that is more in the eye of the beholder, ear of the beholder, because people will have a different line. Because I think some people, if you were looking for whether any of the elements are changed, then you'd think almost everything is a variant. You know, it just the theme will be in a different key. It'll be like in a different instrument, but maybe the same tempo. So does it count if it's like on a different instrument, but it's the same tempo, or is it more meaningful if it's a slower tempo, like a very different, obviously different tempo? Like in A New Hope, even that main theme, Luke's theme, we first hear it in the crawl, but throughout the film, we mostly hear it just in a very, in the homespun woodwind version, where it doesn't sound like the version that we hear in the crawl, but we know it's the same melody, but it's very different. I don't know if that rings a bell to you, but
yeah, it strikes me that we're bumping up against the usual problem of defining like how would you record what a song is or what music is. Is it the day you decided to write it down on musical notation paper with a particular set of music notes? Is that define what a theme or a song is, or is it the way it was played once? Is your memory of it that music existing in 4 dimensions means that it's difficult to say what the definitive version of a thing ever is.
Right. I think
it's all sort of arbitrarily drawing a line and saying, I'm just saying for right now that this is Luke's theme. Right.
I think themes exist in our heads and memories, just like songs do. Like if I were to teach you a song that I'm like, someone teaches me a song and I play it and sing it, and then I'm teaching someone else a song. Even though my version of the song will be different than the way someone else sings the song, there is like, we're still singing the same song. There is still a song that we are both singing. And that's, if we get into like music licensing and everything, like the song, this ephemeral thing that can't be defined, is protected. It is categorized in a different. It's considered different than the recording, and so the copyright stuff and the licensing, you have to. It's separate, Mm-hmm. They're separate things. So that was So I guess my answer to your question is that there is not really a gold standard answer to your question, though there are certain parameters that different composers might, in terms of consistency, they might consider enough difference. And I think the easiest way that I could explain this would be in all of the pieces that are called something like theme and variations, where you'll have like, the first movement will be like a theme, and then all the other movements will be variants on that theme. And, like Mozart did it with the Twinkle Twinkle theme. It's like, let's do that higher. It's like maybe the first one is like, I don't know. I don't actually know this piece I don't know all the variations off the top of my head, but then it's like, and it'll just be like different variations, you know what I mean? But it's still the same theme.
Yeah, there's a way in which like even someone who's ignorant like me about these topics can kind of still hear that those are the same theme, even though one of them has quintupled the number of notes being played. And if I only knew that fact, I might think they must be radically different. But instantly, my subconscious or my heart tells me like, oh no, that's the same thing. It's just a little bit played with.
Right. And going through like all these scores, I can definitely say that when these themes crop up, I don't think I've ever seen them crop up in the same way 2 times in a row. It's always different. And it might not be in ways that are noticeable because, for example, if it's like just in a different key, but all of the relative pitches are the same, then that might register to some people, but not others. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so definitely definitely these themes go all around the keys because to insert it in a way that just makes sense in context, you're going to be changing keys a lot. And then instruments is like a huge one. It's like very rarely the same instrument, at least not in the accompaniment. And so then that goes into like, do you consider the melody the theme or the melody and the chords? And for some themes, the melody might be enough. And for others, the chords might really be important. Like I think the Secrets theme, I think the chords are pretty important because otherwise the Secrets theme would just be. And I know from doing that just playing these 3 notes, it's like hardly enough context for people to be like, oh yeah, that's the Secrets theme. Alex from Star Wars Minute, I think it was Alex, just hears this and just can't not think Jurassic Park.
Girl, same.
And so, and people were also hearing this theme, I believe, in Book of Boba Fett. I can't remember even. It's not even a theme. It's just 3 notes. Without context, it's so hard to know what that means. Yeah.
So we're back to Dies Irae all over again.
But even more because, although Dies Irae has the benefit of having more notes, but it's still. But so this is even like more divorced from Dies Irae. But I actually think it's one of I think it might be my favorite. Is it my favorite Powell theme in this film? I don't know. It's so simple. And if it were just those 3 notes, it would be easy to miss. But I think the way that the chords organize themselves around that and the flexibility of those notes, I feel like in this score, I think they make the most of those notes in an interesting way. Yeah.
We're in the back half of the film. When you say that's your favorite, what's going into your priority or ranking system there?
I always just do these things on just because it's just how I feel. I don't, there is no logical explanation. It's not the most complicated. It's not I don't know. Yeah. There's no logical explanation. Just my favorite.
Cheers.
Yeah. So I will not be taking questions at this time. I will not be trying to convince other people because you'll have your favorite too. And you don't need to explain. So we're not just talking about this out of nowhere. It is going to come up in pretty soon. So let's continue listening to the minutes. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay. Let's see. I'm going to find the spot. So here.
My mother once told me about a band of mercenaries that came to a peaceful planet.
They had a resource there these men coveted. So they took it. They kept coming back.
I find this
taking
speech
more.
very difficult for
So finally the people resisted.
March of the Resistance.
When they returned demanding their tribute, the people
Catch
shouted
that?
back in one voice, no more. The mercenaries didn't like the sound of that. So they cut off the tongue of every last man, woman, and child.
See, now we
Do
have
you know
more
what that
bass
pack of
singers.
animals became? Tell them.
So here's where we have the Secrets theme. And we're going to have this. Well, after this Enfys Nest stuff. Right here. So we have it. 2.
Crimson Dawn and the rest of the 5 syndicates have committed
3.
unspeakable crimes across the galaxy.
4.
Says you.
5,
Says them.
6,
Each of our worlds has been brutalized by the syndicates.
7.
Crimson Dawn
Well,
will use their profits.
The resolution, at least. So, a lot just happened there, and I feel like the most interesting part was not the dialogue, because I don't even understand what she's saying. Like, I have to keep rewinding to be like, when she says that pack of animals, I'm like, when did she talk about animals? And then I'm realizing, okay, I guess it's like a saying. Like, I don't understand that. I definitely in the theaters did not understand that story. I was just like, all right, some people that did stuff. And then, but the music was really drawing me to that point where the village woman draws the Crimson Dawn symbol in the dirt on the wall, and the symbol looks kind of like a Pokeball, right? And that is like for me, that's a even more impactful reveal than the Enfys Nest moment, taking her helmet off.
Oh, certainly agree.
Yeah.
I love Kellerman's delivery there, though. She's really selling this very simple story of like.
Oh yeah, I like her delivery.
Bad guys were bad.
Like I like her delivery because in that, like, I feel her. I think it has like good pathos to it. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't understand really what she's talking about. Like, I think the script is a little bit like reading it off of a fairy tale or something. Mm-hmm. But that's just me. It feels, maybe I can justify it by thinking she's perhaps told this story in this florid way many times. So it's like a rehearsed story, maybe. But the way that the March of the Resistance comes in very briefly. I love that. Right when she says, until finally the people resisted. And it's like, that is interesting to me because that also could be not non-specific. It's just a little, it's kind of similar to Crimson Dawn, to the Secrets theme, or Dies Irae, where it's just a few notes. It just goes kind of stepwise up a scale. But the other part of like theme spotting is that context matters. And so because of the context in which that comes in, one can draw, it's more evidence to make the case for that is March of the Resistance. It's right when she says resisted. It comes in in a way that interrupts the music that was coming before it. Like, it clearly comes in and out, like, on purpose.
I like that hint very much. I like this part of the story too. I admit that very much biases me to the music in this moment. That she's got a meaningful origin story that connects her to other people, that makes complicates the previous villain, even if that's kind of a cliche move to have in a Star Wars. That she's not so villainous after all. Maybe we're more alike than we thought, kind of moment. And her, Kellerman is she's such a talent. She hasn't done. I can't believe how little she's done in the amount of time that she's acting. Obviously, she's just a baby. She's just she's just a youngster. But she's right. IMDb or something like that. Something like a dozen things. I mean, I want. She's got such an amazing future ahead of her with the way she can sell such a simple, kind of fairy tale kind of story.
Absolutely. And
it is a little weird when you point out now, though, that like this is probably her in context. That this is probably her speech of like, I'm going to get you on my side by telling you this story of that should make you sympathize with me. And this is how I've recruited all these people. And you kind of get this moment of her being a charismatic leader, but it doesn't. Either she really is in fact a wonderfully charismatic leader, and that's why, even though she's probably told the story 100 times, it still sounds so compelling. Or maybe she hasn't told it that often, and another version of this could have been her delivering it more stilted, more like rehearsed, more like an exhausted tour guide at the end of the day at a museum or something like that.
I think it's delivered very not exhausted tour guide, put it that way.
Yeah.
And I think the way the silent, I guess everyone has their tongue cut out, so okay, I guess damn. was gonna say the silence that everyone else, the space that everyone else gives her. I mean, it's clear that everyone else around her really respects her, like letting her tell her story, and she's not embarrassed about it. She knows that she's a leader. She knows that she's a leader, and even though she's young, like everyone knows that she's a leader too. And okay, you and I have already talked about this before as well, but like her accent. Okay,
I have so many notes. Go on.
So this, I'm not talking about this particular character in isolation. I'm not talking about this actor. Certainly not. She's doing a fantastic job. That has nothing to do with her. She was cast, however, and this is her. And there is, it is interesting. Her accent is so British. So it's not RP, but it's like very crisp. What is it called? What's it called? What is her accent called? It's very like high society.
Yeah, I mean it's urbane.
It's urbane,
I would say.
Yeah, it's not like a Cockney accent for sure. It's, and in Star Wars,
but it is metropolitan. It's not.
Okay.
It's not. It doesn't feel regional. You know,
Okay.
It feels like someone from a city, but from a classy part of a city.
Right. And I feel Star Wars likes to do this with its female characters, especially people of color. And I just think that is interesting. It's an interesting choice. Like I will say, I think the first time we've had a Black woman without a British accent has been in Kenobi with Reva. And prior to that, like I think with Janna, Enfys Nest, British accents, right? And then if we think also of even if we just think of like female characters in Star Wars who are seen as heroic, British accents. Jyn Erso, Qi'ra, or not that she's a heroic, but she's, a main person. Jyn, Rey, right? So we have this British accent thing happening. We're like, it seems like the men can have different types of accents, can be more cool guy, but not the women.
And there's Rose Tico, but a fairly sidelined character.
Yeah, exactly.
As a person, as a woman of color who doesn't have a urbane, metropolitan, slightly posh British accent, or at least what would probably be called, but well-educated kind of accent.
True.
And then when we have Space Indira Varma in Obi-Wan Kenobi, she also is another woman of color with a not quite RP, but certainly a crisp, quote unquote, educated English accent.
Yeah. Although in that case, I think, well, I don't want to give Obi-Wan spoilers in case, give people a couple months, but like,
Sure.
In general, we do hear like British accents in the original trilogy are associated with the Empire. And, like in that case, it makes sense to me. I'm not saying it doesn't make sense later. I'm just saying it's easier to clearly see the pattern in the original trilogy with the British accents, with Tarkin et al. And if we think of all the ways that Star Wars is or isn't kind of an allegory for like empires on Earth, like the British Empire or whatnot, then it's interesting that we see so many rebels later with the British accent. Yeah. So what are your notes on this?
I mean, this group of 5 minutes, for me, highlights what I think I have to hat tip Star Wars Minute. I also talked about this, but the question of whether Solo is the movie with the closest relationship between the vocal performance of the characters and the native speaking voice of the actors. In other words, is this the Star Wars movie with the least like put on or exaggerated accents in it, and I think it is. I mean, this scene, you have Alden Ehrenreich sounding pretty much like Alden Ehrenreich, although you've already covered the extent to which his vocal performance is or is not Harrison Ford at length. I think he's doing a great job, not quite doing an impression of Han Solo and not doing an impression of Harrison Ford, but like he's still pretty close. Emilia Clarke sounds an awful lot like Emilia Clarke in interviews, etc. Woody Harrelson has been using the same Woody Harrelson accent for every character, even when he's doing an incredible job acting.
But that like Southern, that's also another category of Star Wars accents is Woody Harrelson's accent.
It just happens that they cast somebody who kind of without having to think about it, that part of his performance too much, we'll just do that anyway. But then everyone seems to, and Kellyman too, in press or in other things, she sort of talks like that. And assuming that not everybody is doing the like Christian Bale Batman thing of like when they go for an interview, they use the voice that their character used in the thing they're interviewing for, assuming that they're all being somewhat authentic. It sure seems like the Star Wars movie that has the least exaggerated or put on accents. And I'm wondering how you feel about that. I'm not sure.
I don't really have feelings about that. I think it doesn't Finn obviously would be an example of a character who has a different accent on screen than he does off screen. I think casting is where, like, I don't think it doesn't change much for me to know that a character is putting on an accent for a film, because if they're cast, that's also another way of getting what the directors, producers intend. It's just a more direct way of doing it. Like, I could see how some people would think, oh, it's just natural. That's just what their natural accents are. And then I'd always think, well, that's what they cast. And I know from, my experience as an actor, casting is like, that's like pre-screening already. Like that's already, it's so much happens just in the casting, it almost shows me that they knew ahead of time that they wanted these accents, like cast for these accents. So those are my thoughts on that. As
you move through the film, how are you feeling or thinking about Alden's take on the Han Solo performance?
I also don't have that many feelings about it. Because I don't, like, I'm not expecting it to be the same. And at the same time, I'm not like, oh my gosh, it's Han. I'm so excited that it's Han. Like, it feels kind of like Han, but like also kind of, I am suspending disbelief a little bit. So, whenever people point out all the things that he's doing well that are so Han-like, I'm like, yeah, sure. Yeah. Like I can see it. I can see it logically, but it's all about like how it's hitting me, and like it hits me fine. But I don't feel strongly one way or another, certainly not in an evaluative context. I think, yeah. What about, you already said that you think he's doing a fine job.
Yeah, I think this group of 5 minutes presents a number of pieces of evidence to like, or things to point to where he's clearly thought this through working with directors and the other actors, of course, to produce the performance. But he's clearly like put a lot of thought and care into doing a version of this character that we already know, but giving us new things. That I would say, for example, even in this moment, speaking of sound, his going slightly nasally. As the character seems to be more and more insecure in the moment. Yeah, obviously older Han Solo gets more gravelly with age, but even young Han Solo has this powerful bass that he's capable of wielding when he's trying to manipulate somebody. And I love that Alden goes a little higher and a little more exasperated, along with his like kind of walking a little more awkwardly as he comes back to the line there, from stepping out. Just little simple things that give you this slightly younger, slightly more awkward Han Solo.
Huh. Okay. So when I think of Harrison Ford's Han Solo, and other people have said that they don't think Alden Ehrenreich did a bad job. They just think Harrison Ford is Harrison Ford. So that's it's nothing about Alden. It's just more about they love Harrison Ford. And I feel like even Harrison Ford is kind of doing an impression of Harrison Ford in the original trilogy to me. I don't know. Han has never been a favorite character of mine. Never. So I guess I'll just leave it at that. Han's never been a favorite of mine. And I love him just because because I'm interested in everyone. But I have never been, and same with Lando. Lando was never someone that I wanted, that I liked. That said, like, that doesn't mean I can't be interested in them later additional, like, Glover's performance of Lando makes me more interested in Lando than I originally was to begin with.
Good job, Donald Glover.
Right. And Alden's Han, which is a combination of his performance, but also just the script is probably even a bigger factor than that. Doesn't make me want to know more about Han. And so I don't know who to attribute, like, I don't know what to attribute that to specifically. It's because I'm getting the full package and just processing it, just how I got it. And, I wonder in a different script, different timeline, a little bit later or a little bit earlier. Like, I suspect that I would have been really interested in even earlier Han, teenage Han, but, we'll never know. So back to these minutes. Let's go back to that secrets reveal. So good.
Let's do it.
Okay. So I will say that normally, why are you laughing?
I had only questions prepared to throw you off, and you have so much more prepared, ready to go for this. That is completely unfair of me. Say more about this secrets as you grab your bow like you've been waiting to for the last hour.
Okay, so the secrets theme is normally we're used to hearing it probably most kind of starting on a minor. So these are the chords. Like I said, it's not just these three notes. It's also sorry. So now I don't think Alex would say this is Jurassic Park.
Right.
Because that's also important. But here we go through these chord changes. It goes through seven and it comes full circle. So let me just play it so we can hear that awesome way that it unfolds. And note that the melody on top is staying the same. So if you were taking all the harmony out of it and you were just playing actually we're gonna go in a different key, but it's gonna be the same thing. So on top, it is this, just over and over again. Doesn't seem that interesting. It's gonna go 7 times. But underneath, I'm gonna skip a little bit forward, okay? Because that was the first reveal, sorry. All right. Skip even more forward. Okay. Oh, that slow vibrato. You can hear it wavering. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
March of the Resistance.
So good.
Okay, so now we're gonna build into the secrets. So this is when she's like, do you know what that pack of animals became? Tell them. No? All right, now here we go. C major, A half diminished seventh, E minor, C minor, A7, E flat, back to C. It's so good.
What is it about those key changes?
It's not, maybe I shouldn't have actually said the names of the keys out loud because that's not as much of the point, but just the fact that it cycles through all of those keys and lands back home. So, so let's go through them. Okay. All right. Got the piano out. We're ready. So the first one, C major. Okay, so it's kind of, then it goes to this more troubled, and then it kind of goes to this, and it keeps going down. Just the fact that it keeps changing. This one feels hopeful. And then this one I find surprising. D, D, D. Back to C. So we're going C. So it's a little bit of an emotional journey. It kind of reminds me of like when you have a realization and then like different shades of it keep hitting you at like different times. Mm-hmm. You're like, yeah, oh, but what if, okay.
But appropriate for a theme, the secrets theme, to be so much about revelation. Mm-hmm. And to make you feel that revelation. And I know you when you said like it goes home at the end, that feels like exactly the right way to describe it. That we've gone on a journey and then we end up back not just like where we started, but a place that feels like right and safe to have returned to, having seen or listened to the things that we just listened to.
Yeah, and literally like the first time we hear it comes back to the same chord, you know? We could have skipped this whole, we could have just stayed here and skipped the whole and just come back here. But we went through all of the different shades.
This is transforming my experience of those three notes. So it started at Jurassic Park, but now having thought about the keys a little bit, hearing you play it again and again is making me think more like da 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 da.
Oh,
as
Jin.
the follow up to as the follow up to the three notes, the Jin theme.
Not that one, but there we go.
Mm-hmm. It is a little bit. Like it's so simple you could kind of, it's almost like the electrical outlet that becomes a surprised face if you're a human being looking for patterns.
Yeah, which is why I think I like the secrets theme, because it's so it's like a little secret in plain sight. No, it can be read into anything, but when it can really make itself known if it really wants to, like here. Where it's like secrets. For real, this is not a false alarm. This is actually his things 3 notes. So yeah, let's listen to that one more time, just because it's just because I like it. All right, let's hear the lead up a little bit. So we're in Savareen standoff. Oh, go back a little bit more. Now we're back. Yeah. It's beautiful.
So it's all downhill from here. It's that's it. Is that peak these minutes for you, Xanthe?
Yep. It's peak these minutes. But then
Okay.
we have sound design. And I think the sound design on Savareen is some of my favorite too. We also, go ahead.
No, do tell.
Oh yeah. I love the sound design on Savareen just because you can hear so much of the environment. And then when like I'm surprised by how I guess much is accomplished in these 5 minutes. Toward the end, we're already getting Han and Beckett starting to say goodbye, and we get more of that harp. Is it harp? We get that instrument where it's playing the gang theme. We'll hear it in a second, but like it kind of sounds like a sad goodbye to me. Like, oh, I guess, are we friends? I don't know, but kind of sucks to see you go. Yeah, but you can tell me what you think of it. But moving on from the secrets part, now tell me what else your thoughts are. And also all these other links that you sent to me, have they become relevant yet? You sent me Dr. 11 from Station 11.
Hold on that one.
Okay, hold. Will it come up later? Okay, I'm holding on it. I'm ready.
Okay.
When you want me
All
to
right.
whip it out, I'll whip it out.
I sent you a link to the theme for maybe my favorite sitcom right now, Girls 5 Eva, which is if people want to, this is backtracking very slightly. If people want to hear a really blunt, like even a doofus like me can figure this out, example of a theme that has then those case specific variations that that make things really easier for you to know you're still watching the same show, and now you should feel sad. That show does a great job of taking this pop song that is sort of central to the plot of the show, and then playing it slow and sad when you're supposed to be sad, and even more excited and happy when you're supposed to be excited and happy. But we're about to enter the moment in these minutes that I at the start I said I'm so excited about the environmental sound design here, that for me feels extremely Kurosawa, because I'm a weeb and I have to own that, and I try to pretend that everything in Star Wars filmmaking is connected back to Kurosawa instead of just most things, which is closer to the truth. But Kurosawa has in a lot of Kurosawa films, especially early stuff, and especially his more historical stuff, he's this master of using wind. And if it's going to be windy in a Kurosawa movie, it's going to be a damn near tornado, never a gentle breeze. And we get some of the best, for me, some of the best Star Wars version of that, of using the environment to just let it sit there and be the environment and let that do something to you, the way human beings, when you go out in nature and you just shut your mouth for a second, or you turn off the podcast you're listening to while you're hiking and you just let the sound of nature do something to you. It's so beautifully done here. It's so well balanced, and it takes me right back to like the opening of Rashomon, or some of the big battle scenes in Ron, or something like that, where that wind just sort of sweeps everybody and everything up into it for a moment.
I also love the wind in these on Savareen.
Right. In conclusion, wind good.
Wind good. Yes. Yeah. So, and waves.
And waves.
As well.
And even the engine sound, telling a story with a sound effect, rather than having some characters stop and say like, the Millennium Falcon is flying away. We get that. We see how the characters, react to that without dialogue or without music telling us what we're supposed to think.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's get into that. We are going to have one more theme pop up.
System of the system, in league with the Empire.
Enfys is still giving her speech.
And what would you use it for?
A little
The same thing my mother would
string.
have used it for if she had survived and still
Chromatic
wore a mask.
line.
To fight back. We're not marauders.
Now we have the
We're allies.
Bulgarian Women's Choir again,
And the war's just begun.
but not singing the Enfys Nest theme. Young Han Solo, heroic, but slow. Speaking of variants, now we have waves. Waves. Waves and flapping.
You know we can't give the coaxium to Dryden Voss.
Joining the cause, Han Solo?
I'm trying to make it out alive.
And
Got
so
a plan?
Yeah, beginning of one. Way to get our money.
in these scenes, also in the one where Han and Lando are speaking, before when Lando's like, I never want to see you again. In the last set of minutes, we do get a lot of the environment with no music as well. Or at least very little music. And I don't know, something about the beach, just being on the edge of the beach. They're really letting it sit there.
Yeah, it feels like a precipice. It feels slightly perilous. Being that close to a big natural element means it's always there, and they're never quite settled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I started making a list of other great moments that immediately jumped into my mind where the sound design, especially the environmental sound design, just gets to take over, even if it's for a moment, however rare that is in the opera that is Star Wars. And I just wrote down like the 6 or 7 like that first came to my mind, and I am super curious what else you would add to that list. But I thought of so many of the Death Star establishing shots in A New Hope, where we get the sound of this thrumming large object, and some of them have like as you say, there's a little bit of overlapping music or something, but it's highly minimized. Or we hear the sound of like boots walking and maybe the beep of a mouse droid, but we just get to be in that environment for a second and feel how mechanical it all sounds, as opposed to, let's say, the sound of the waves that is imposing but also is natural. Han arriving to save Luke and Empire, arriving on the Tauntaun, and we get that we have the sound of the storm. And you can hear the Tauntaun's footfalls. Yeah. The brief moment with that, as we're coming up on Jabba's palace from Return of the Jedi, where we were just watching a frog, the big fat like sand frog, eat that creature that's nearby to it. Just little creature sounds and the open desert in the evening. Approaching Camino in Attack of the Clones with the storm. Oh, such phenomenal sound design.
Good.
It just pulls you right into, how perilous this place is going to be without Obi-Wan even realizing it. A little bit of foreshadowing. Of course, the moments in Last Jedi of the pre-battle preparation on Crate, where we have, obviously that movie uses silence in a different way, but in that moment it's not at all silent. It's the sound of people, adjusting in the trench, and we get some, nice character Foley and stuff, but really minimal music. And I was thinking of, and this one I might be misremembering, but Jin in the Imperial prison, or as a prisoner in Rogue One, where you sort of getting the isolation of that lack of music and the uncertainty of, she's not oriented yet. We as the audience aren't oriented yet, but we can hear there's something outside the cell. There's stuff happening, and she's closed off from it. So still feels, in all of these, I'm projecting some of my own emotional, feelings about or response to the story with the sound design, the way music would normally, try to inspire or do. But I'm wondering what other moments come up for you.
Well, we mentioned this in the last episode, but it hasn't come out yet. But I mentioned the arrival on Tatooine in A New Hope.
Great.
No music.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think those are some of the most interesting times to get like a gut check for people, because without music with music, it kind of makes it easier for people to fall in line with what the desired emotion should be there. But without music, it's kind of like you're on your own. Like, figure it out. Like, it kind of gives us space to like sink in to the environment, which I feel can yield quite a variety of responses. So yeah, it's perfectly good to project your own emotions there. What else are you gonna do? That's a good
It
list.
seems like that's a good, that's good sound design. That's the folks making sure there's something there for you, except for those rare moments where there's absolutely nothing, and then that's deliberate. But there's something there for you to hook onto. But you have to kind of work your way through it a little bit, and sometimes it might be giving you important plot information, like the sound design of the Falcon flying away. But yeah, I really like that, just letting us, in those rare moments. We don't need it for a Star Wars, which is maybe arguably opera more than any other kind of art form. But it's fine. It's fine to tell us what to feel in Star Wars, but it's nice to get those moments to punctuate it.
And I think Star Wars does actually give quite a bit of silence. I think it doesn't always get the credit that it gets for the silence that it gives. I also say Octo Island in The Last Jedi. We get some great. I mean, we had a whole episode here called Colors of the Wind, so where we talked about the wind sounds. Yeah, it's like how new scenes, there's like establishing shots. There's this also establishing sound, and I feel like in a new location, it's equally powerful to not just you want to have the establishing shot of the place, but like just also let us hear the place, let us hear the porgs or the wind, or the waves. Yeah. Good stuff. Okay. So we have this conversation. Jump in if you have more notes that I'm breezing past, or when the Station 11 thing comes up. And we have what Han and Beckett are talking about is Beckett's like, joining the cause, Han Solo. Han's like, just trying to make it out alive. Got a plan? Yeah, beginning of one. Oh, he has the beginning of a plan. That's new. Way to get our money and get out from under the thumb of Crimson Dawn at the same time. And then Beckett says, maybe get your girlfriend back while we're at it. You don't tangle with Dryden, because unlike us, he actually does travel with hired guns, his own private army. And then Han says, so does Enfys. Listen, here's what I got so far. And we don't actually hear his plan because we have a little bit of a POV change. And Qi'ra and Enfys are together, still no music. And Enfys is like, what do you think they're saying? And Qi'ra he's going to help you. He's going to try to help you. She knows. She thinks he's the good guy, and she has an intuition about him. Yeah, that he probably doesn't even recognize or admit in himself.
Probably not a deliberate callback to Han Solo in Force Awakens saying women always know, but it is a recurring idea in Star Wars, at least. I also love about that moment that it's a classic movie making trick, that it's a trick, but you don't mind being tricked, that like there's no way in the amount of time that they cut away for that he could have explained everything. It's not it's realistic, but it's not real. It's just enough for you to feel like, oh, they talked about something, and we didn't get to hear it. We'll cut back.
Oh, right, because then right.
It should have taken so much longer for them to finish explaining. Yeah,
because right after that, they pick right up after that plan probably would have been said, because they cut right back to Han and Beckett's like, I see. Lots of ways it could go south, and only one where it doesn't. And you're like, what did he say?
I've fully digested what was probably a 20-minute conversation, and on screen only needs to be 30 seconds, and that's fine.
For all we know, Han's plan could have been, here's what I got so far. We get on the thing, and then it could have been not very much. Maybe he only had the...
Also in character for young Han Solo.
Yeah. Or old Han Solo. Okay, so let's see. Han, that's why I need my partner. And Beckett says, not this time. I'm leaving. If you're smart, you'll come with me. And then Han says, I thought you didn't believe in running. And then Beckett says, I prefer it to dying. And then we get more music. So, shall we listen to that music?
Let's do it.
Yes. Okay. All right. Let's lead into a little bit.
Thought you didn't believe in running.
prefer it to dying.
And here, this harp playing the gang theme, slow.
That's what that is.
Kind of bittersweet.
Mm-hmm.
This is the beginning of the track. Qi'ra knows a bit more than Han.
By some miracle, you make it out of here. Find me on Tatooine.
So,
What's on
Beckett's,
Tatooine?
Beckett's not closed
Heard about
off.
a job. Big shot gangster putting together a crew. That'll be the one.
The one?
My last score. Yes.
Yeah. So that's where the minute ends. But he's going to say, "I still got some debts to pay before I can head back to Gleon-Sam and get into the Valicord," which the harp kind of sounds like a stand-in for the Valicord to me.
I was just going to ask, what else does the harp, besides opportunity / hope in Star Wars, what does the harp stand for? Valicord is, I guess, the best answer there. It always feels hopeful to me, though, or at least like opportunity. There's a chance, there's an opening here. So I love the transition of the harp here. It's maybe not super confident yet, but we've got a little bit of a more positive feeling as we exit the scene.
Oh, interesting. I don't know. What do you mean by positive?
Well,
Like
I
there's
hate to
no bad
overuse the
blood?
word. More like they have a chance. There's a shot. The harp in Star Wars for me feels like an instrument where you can keep going, you can keep moving, there's something to do here.
Interesting.
Hope is not lost.
I feel like the harp is almost like a somber ending. But also, I think it's not just about the instrument. I'm also thinking about the music that the harp is playing, so which can obviously change things greatly. Here, I feel like it's not necessary. It feels like a goodbye for some reason. It feels like goodbye. The harp, goodbye, but we had good times. Goodbye, but no bad blood is how I interpret the harp. But also just the Valicord. It makes me think of the Valicord, which we don't know for sure what the Valicord sounds like. So, yeah.
What kind of breakup is this? Is this a breakup like, oh, we were in a relationship, but I had to move away, and so that's why we're breaking up? So it's no bad blood, but we do have to separate? Or is this like the breakup where like we're going to see each other again, but let's just be friends? The romance thing didn't work. Like what?
No,
what vibe of breakup is this?
I think it's we work well together, but I got to take care of myself. But like I would like it if you joined, but I'm not going to stop what I'm not going to stop what I need to do for you to join. But if you join, I will be kind of glad that you do. But yeah, that is not superseding my need to take care of myself. So it's like I'm leaving, but the door is open, but the ball's in your court. So, yeah. And we know that at the end of the movie, Han does eventually go to Tatooine, right? To
sure
link
does.
up with Jabba. So it seems like, he does kind of take even though the door is even though he is no longer on the other end of the door, Beckett, at the end of the film, spoilers, Han still goes through that door, So
Space Woody Harrelson is really the reason that we have Star Wars, so we can thank him.
True, right? Because he's not like I'm leaving and I'm not telling you where I'm going. He does tell him, so like he is, he's explicit. Unlike Val, who didn't say where she disappeared to when she faked her death.
When she faked her death, thank you.
Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think of this?
I think these are great minutes. I wish there was more of that environmental sound, but it feels great. What's there? I think the only other thing I wanted to throw out is, as a critique, is I wish the Millennium Falcon takeoff sound was a little uglier, a little dirtier. I went found someone very helpfully on YouTube make a supercut of all the times that the Millennium Falcon is like powering up and taking off, mostly from like interior cockpit shots, but it's
which would be louder,
wonderful,
of course.
which would be a little louder, and it's a wonderful example of like movie fakery, and that like it's the same starship, but not a single time does anyone repeat the same like combination of buttons and switches to start the thing up. Like it's all just actors randomly touching stuff in the environment, and it looks great every time, and it doesn't matter that it's completely inconsistent. But also the sounds are all like a little bit different. It feels like there's a lot more care put into the sound design, changing in each of those takeoffs to give you a little bit more information about that scene and what's going to happen. And so when I watched that and then rewatched the Falcon taking off here, I wish it were, since the Falcon has been through so much without repairs at this point, I wish it were a little bit, uglier or jankier or dirtier. Maybe that's to not draw too much attention away, but tiny critique in what is otherwise, I think, a really superbly well sound designed chunk of minutes.
Okay, so first of all, that supercut, I'm going to put a link in the show notes. It's from a channel called Bruce Kenobi, and the video is called All the Ways to Power Up the Millennium Falcon Supercut, and it is a supercut of it. It's great. If like many
Thanks,
listeners,
Bruce.
You are an appreciator of the Millennium Falcon sound, check out that video. Maybe put it on in the background on loop. So here, okay. I see what you're saying, like, because if we go back, it is a very clean sounding, like kind of like just a clean white noisy takeoff, right? Like if we, I'll play back. Let's see if we hear it. It's before this, actually, I think.
Hey. About 30 hired guns. All I gotta do is give them the signal. You're surrounded.
There. Yeah, so you mean that?
I mean that, yeah. And it's funnier that it's a clean, quick sound.
Is it that quick?
It just okay. Maybe that's unfair, but it's certainly funnier that it just takes off and it goes away, and that we're not. It's not punctuated by like, I don't know, a bunch of smoke coughing out of the exhaust or something like that. Because the point is that any chance of backup is now completely gone. And if he was trying to give the impression that he had legitimate backup, then that legitimate backup is no longer there.
Do you remember how close the Falcon is to the camera at this point?
Oh, way in the far background.
Right. So I feel... So that obviously, the distance from the sound obviously changes the sound. I'm not saying, I don't know how much they were thinking in terms of consistency of like how far away we are from the sound, like, and how realistic that is. I don't know, but.
Yeah, I don't imagine they sat and calculated the Doppler for that.
Right. But one could imagine that it wouldn't sound as gnarly from farther away. However, I wonder if we would also hear so much high end. We are hearing kind of a lot of high end. And I feel like I'm not sure if we would actually hear so much of that far away. I don't know, though, because I don't know what the Falcon sounds like in real life. I would like to, though.
I'd be super curious if someone who went through the Falcon experience at Galaxy's Edge had an impression of that, too. I don't know what the sound design of that is. I haven't been, but I wonder if that gives like an even a whole yet a new layer or a new take on what it sounds like to be in the Falcon.
It feels great. I can report. It feels great, but also it's different hearing it from the inside than outside. From experience, just
obviously
it would be, it just would be. So I guess that's the end of that conversation. We just don't really know, but you kind of wish it was dirtier, and that's fair.
Yeah.
I have to know, why did you send me a link to Station 11?
I hear there's a questionnaire on the show.
There's a question?
I hear there's a questionnaire on Star Wars Music Minute.
Oh my gosh. I blew it.
I could be wrong about that too.
Nope, you are correct. You are correct.
Oh, wow. Oh, Cool. I'm gonna give myself a little gold star for guessing correctly.
Oh my gosh, you've answered it before. You know. Okay. Well, is there anything else about these minutes that you wanted to say before we head over?
If it does, I'll just say shout out to Pole Arms finally making an appearance in Star Wars. Good Foley on Enfys Nest's Electro Ripper, along with great Foley. I think in this scene in general, it's really minimal, and I think that can sometimes be the best, especially like character Foley.
Did you say Pole Arms?
But at last we got a pole arm in Star Wars. It's one of my favorite things about Solo, which is very dumb. But
what's a pole arm?
It's a hand-to-hand or close combat weapon that has a stick with something on the end of it. So Enfys Nest's Electro Ripper, she's got this staff, but it's got that funky, cool, junk, sort of dirty sci-fi blade on the end, and I love it. It looks great. She uses it well. The choreography for it is fantastic, and it sounds good in this moment. Even if I'm mad that she puts the blade in the sand, seems like a great way to foul whatever mechanism is on there.
Never thought of it.
It's a super cool Star Wars weapon, and Star Wars has a lot of cool weapons.
Pole arm spelled like a pole and an arm.
You got it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is this why you sent the video of the guy in the red and black tabard with the gold eagle on it?
It is.
Great.
It super is.
I'll put a link in the show notes if you just want to see all the cryptic things that Alex.
Let's just throw
said.
that contextless.
I was like, why is that related? Because I didn't even really think too much about the weapon. So nice. Okay, you just drew my attention to that.
Some things are on air, some things are off air. That's fine.
Great. So now I will tell you what themes and stuff. Oh, one thing I want to say is like when I ask Alexa to play Savareen Standoff this morning, then first of all, Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop.
You invited that droid into your house.
She's listening. I thought I would said it softly too. She could not play it. I tried to pronounce it several different ways. And she played not Savareen Standoff, but Seven Rings by Ariana Grande. Savareen, Seven Rings.
Upgrade?
No. And then when we went through a whole, she never played it. She never played it. But so yeah, if any listeners can get theirs to play Savareen Standoff or Emphasis Standoff, I'll be impressed. All right. So the themes in this set of minutes are the Rebel Fanfare, Enfys Nest 1, March of the Resistance, A section, Secrets, Young Han Solo, heroic version, and The Gang. In the soundtrack, we are on the track called Savareen Standoff, also the same thing, or Emphasis Standoff on the deluxe version. And then we're also at the beginning of Qi'ra Knows a Bit More Than Han. When I Shazam, during this section, Shazam also picks up Eveline by Jorge Mendez, so don't know why. And now it's time to go to the Star Wars Music Minute Questionnaire, in which I ask you the same 3 questions that I ask every guest. And since you've already answered the questionnaire, I will also tell you what your old answers are. But do you want me to tell you them after you give your new answer or before?
After, please.
All right. So, freshly, in exactly 3 words, what does Star Wars sound like?
John, James, Ben.
In that order?
No. Let's record that as John, Ben, James, but it's close.
Okay. What's something related to Star Wars music or sound that you want to learn more about? Actually, I'll just tell you. Your old answer was also John, Ben, James.
Oh, okay. Good.
So what's something that you want to learn more about?
I would love to know because of this chunk of minutes, I would love to know like who's on the Foley team, and how do they talk about the work that they do for Star Wars. It really feels like some films feel like they're doing Foley by playing pre-recorded things on a keyboard from a batch of pre-established sounds, and some really feel like every single thing is different, every single footfall is brand new. I imagine that the craftspeople over at Skywalker Sound are doing a ton of original creative work to keep this going over so many decades and sounding so great. And I would love to know like what their process is like, how they talk about it and train each other to keep getting better at that.
Question. Do you mean who is on the team like now? Like who is on the Foley team currently, or like in these films? You mean
I'm
other
more
than Ben
interested
Burtt?
In like how do they think and talk about Foley? How do they challenge themselves creatively in that way? I mean, I could go on IMDb, I guess, and look up, or rewatch the movies and look up exactly the names of the thing. But I'm curious, what do they? How do they identify it? Do they think of themselves as sound designers first, and that Foley is just one part of that, or sound editors or creators? I'm just curious, like what that process looks like, and how they keep seeming to my ears keep getting better and better.
That's a good one. How do they, I guess, approach their creative work? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Just want to make sure I'm characterizing it correctly. So,
yeah.
I will just say Foley does indicate a specific thing that is different from sound designer. But I think the key part there is like, I also am very interested to know how the nuts and bolts of how they talk to each other about it. I'm with you there. Your previous answer was, what other sound designers does Ben Burtt admire?
Yeah, I still want to know that too.
Yeah. And the final question is, what is a score or soundtrack that you're fond of besides anything Star Wars?
I'm going to have to go with the score to Station 11 by Dan Romer.
Wow.
I know. Sorry for the curveball at the end of the recording here, but if folks who are listening to this pod don't feel like watching the whole thing, although they should, but it's really heavy. There's a lot of content in there that maybe isn't for everybody, but it's a wonderful little mini series. If you don't want to watch the whole thing, just do yourself a favor and look up the track Dr. 11, which is functions sort of as the theme, or the primary theme for the whole show. Among the many amazing things about that miniseries Station 11, the soundtrack is just haunting from the very first episode on. I don't think you'll be able to get it out of your head. So I know people don't usually bring up scores to non-film.
No, they do.
Projects here, but I wanted to shout that out.
So what service is this on?
It's on the HBO Max.
Okay. Cool. Well, since you sent it to me, I'll put I already have a link in the show notes to that track.
Amazing.
Dr. 11.
Amazing.
Your previous answer was Qi'ra and The Harder They Come. So, now we have new answers and old answers, and episode 21 for both of the last couple seasons.
Lucky me.
Yeah, seriously. Lucky me. You're going to know minutes 101 through 105 very well. Every movie now. So
sort of my thing.
Before we end, where can people find you online, Alex?
I guess they can find me on the Discord for the Star Wars Music Minute Patreon.
That's true.
Come find me at as Brick Steelhead, all one word, on the Discord for the Star Wars Music Minute Patreon, which I'm sure you can find by going to patreon.com/Star Wars Music Minute.
It's actually /Chrysanthi Tan, but whatever.
Chrysanthi Tan is absolutely what I meant to say. And then you can join us on the Discord for all kinds of fun discussions and overthinking stuff that is definitely worth overthinking.
There is a lot of overthinking. Yes, that is true.
Yeah.
But there's no better place to get into long Star Wars discussions because Twitter is too quick and too easy to not go into detail about what you mean, and too hot takey sometimes. So so that was supposed to be a plug for you, but it was a plug for me. So thank you. I will also put a link in the show notes to Alex's previous episode, in which we were talking about A New Hope. We were talking about the base, the rebel, the jungle. We were talking about the jungle-y, the warehousey. I remember our episode. I just can't remember the name of that location. What was that location called?
Yavin 4.
Wow. Yeah.
Where
there we go.
They're getting ready to launch the mission on the Death Star.
Yeah, exciting stuff.
Not as many pole arms, but that's okay.
Not as many pole arms, but a lot of ships. A lot more ships.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, win some, lose some. So yeah, Alex already did a plug for Star Wars Music Minute Patreon. So with that, might as well end here. Thank you so much for listening. If you have your favorite Millennium Falcon sounds or your favorite environment sounds to add to Alex's list, do let us know. I am curious what your favorite Star Wars ambiances are. And may the Force be with you. And see you next week on Star Wars Music Minute.